Nice. So my mic's been off this whole time. Great. I've been talking to myself. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. I don't know if you couldn't hear me before. I've been talking to myself for how long? 30 minutes? Oh, that's good. I just realized, hey, maybe I should check my mic. So thank you, Konstantinos. Thank you, Little Viv. Thank you, Adriana. Thank you, Fairy Lover. All of y'all. Thanks for writing comments. Feel free to reach out. I am here. I just thought nobody. I didn't think anybody was responding. I'm like, wow, I'm actually not getting a lot of responses. So if you're out there and you hear me, feel free to write in the chat. Please give this video a like. Helps propagate it. I've never charged for this course. My free painting course, which is still up, painting-course.com. It's actually free. It's just there. You don't even have to put an email in or any of that nonsense. Just like, I'm just gonna put all this content up. Actually started because I was kind of annoyed with the level of quality amongst a lot of these online content management systems. So I was teaching these classes that would require you to put something into an online management system. Now they have Canvas, which just works well. Actually works. But back in the day, it didn't work that well. So I started making a website for my students so they could have a better resource place with videos, and I could add more materials to blog posts than I could to this silly learning management software I used to use for my school. But those have since got better. Probably do a lot more with them now. I guess I know that because I am teaching on one of them in Canvas. It works fine. It works really well. A little hair thing. Feel free to write any questions or comments you got down in the comments. This is just open studio hours, kind of like how professors will often have studio hours. And I was saying before, one of my goals with what I'm starting, Oko Academy, which is a one-on-one artist mentorship program in Prague, Czech Republic, is type of art education where you're learning directly from teachers, one-on-one, and artists. So the tagline for the academy is "Learn from artists." And I've got 5 mentors that have acknowledged their desire to teach through Oko Academy. So I'll have 5 different mentors to choose from. So you can choose who you want to be with. They're not really classes based on like this is how you draw trees. You know, like those Domestika courses and stuff like that. Those are cool. I don't think they're bad, but you know, they're like $9. Mine are significantly more because it's one-on-one. So it's not like a learn how to draw trees in 6 weeks, which sounds good. I'd probably like that class. It'd be fun. But what I'm focused on more is working with students individually, figuring out their goals, what they want to do, and kind of coaching them. Helping people be honest. One really good exercise that anybody can do, and this is no secret, but is to simply find an artist that you like. That's the first thing. Find somebody you really, really like. And print out an image of theirs. And make your own work. Whatever it is. Just paint how you always paint. Draw like you always draw, or whatever. Then print out an image that you have made. And then just put those two images side by side. And obviously you're going to see, like, you know, if I put this painting beside the Mona Lisa, Mona Lisa is going to look better. Maybe. Most people, I think, would agree. I would agree. But more importantly, when you look at those two images together, you really see that, okay, there's different processes, there's different techniques in order to make paint look a certain way and act a certain way. There's different things that we can do. That causes paint to react. And so you can just look at those two paintings side by side and then think about, okay, so do I want to use this or do I not want to use this? And I think one thing that's really not taught a lot, it's taught with writing. I kind of got into it in my last Paint Like a Writer video. But one thing I think that's really not taught a lot is allowing yourself to really just do something consistently. And art schools hammer so much theory into people's brains and think about why you're making this mark and what are you trying to convey with this mark, right? You're supposed to think so deeply about these pieces when a lot of it is also just kind of giving yourself over and trusting that if you keep doing this every day and you keep looking is important, something's going to start happening. Might not happen overnight. Might take months, years, decades. But you keep chugging along. After a while, something interesting is going to start happening. But you got to loosen yourself up and allow that to be something you allow to happen, right? You can't just plan everything out. This is how I paint. This is how you end up with pizza. This is how you end up with pizza in the center of your... It's not even the right way. If it was this way, then he could be eating the pizza, or she, they, could be eating the pizza. But no, I had to put the pizza that way. Why? Like there's a good podcast with Alexander Kanevsky. I think it's called Artist Decoded. the Artist Decoded podcast. And there's a painter, Alexander Kanevsky, he's from Philadelphia. And he talks about, in that podcast, he talks about making a mess and then painting your way out of it, which I think is a good approach to painting. If you're really worried about every section of your painting, like, it's not going to work. You can't be worried when you paint. You always have the power to screw everything up, and you can fix it. It's not like a tattoo. You can fix stuff. So you gotta just let it flow. Let it flow. I should sing. No, you shouldn't. I went through a phase over all this lockdown madness. I went through a phase of like learning the classical guitar. And I actually learned a couple songs, believe it or not. I just did it every day for like 15 minutes. And I mean, I played guitar, I messed around with guitar for pretty much my whole life. I got my first guitar when I was like 8. I got a Flying V, which is a very impractical guitar for an 8-year-old. I got a full-size Flying V, wood-grained Flying V guitar, which is just so awesome that my parents made such a unsensible choice, which is totally sensible because I thought it was the coolest thing of all time. Like a normal guitar or a metal Flying V guitar that like Steve Vai would play or something. So I learned on that. Also played drums for a while. Had a drum set in my room. My dad, last time I was back, he was teaching me piano because he was, I don't know. I mean, the term prodigy is kind of like thrown around these days a lot more. Back when I was a kid, the prodigy meant you were like 1 in a million. Now you're like 1 in 1,000, probably. But he was one of those kids that there was like the family story. My grandmother had 2 grand pianos in her living room. Not 1, but 2. Because 2's better than 1. I think somebody was probably going to throw 1 away or something. And she saved 1 of them. But she had 1 of her own, which was a real nice grand piano. And then she had another one under the stairs. And she could play piano. She was pretty good. But then again, back in the day, more people of that generation were just able to play instruments and stuff like that. I think most people probably didn't have 2 grand pianos in their living room in Kansas. But yeah, she had these 2 grand pianos, and my dad was like 4, and she was practicing this piece, so she was going over this piece like a million times. I don't know what it was, Debussy or something. And she was going over the same piece like a million times, da 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 da, or whatever. And she was cooking in the next room, and all of a sudden she hears on the piano, da 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 da, that same thing. She's like, "What?" She goes in there, and my dad was mimicking everything he heard on the piano. So, yeah, he was one of those people. And it's funny, when I was back visiting, I was stuck there for an inordinate amount of time due to the lockdowns. couldn't even fly out of the US for a long time. So stuck. And I was talking to him and I said, like, yeah, I remember I was playing the drums in my room and he was like, "You played the drums?" I was like, "We lived in the same house." Like, I played the drums for like 3 or 4 years in my room in this tiny little house that we had. There's like no reason that so many people should have lived in that size of a house. From like modern standards, people would be like, "How is that possible?" I don't know. Back then, it didn't matter. So plenty of people still do it today, just not many in the U.S. And yeah, it was like a 2-bedroom house with 5 people in it. It was like, yeah, I think you probably heard me practicing the drums over the years. But yeah, I went through a phase where I was like, I'm going to learn to play classical guitar. And I'd still like to do it every day, maybe just 15 minutes a day or whatever. It's kind of fun to see what you can actually learn if you commit yourself to just a little bit of time every single day working on it. I've been doing these streams over on Twitch now for about 2 months. And I'm kind of amazed at, just the entire concept of streaming, the way it works into studio practice, how we create a studio practice that can be consistently replicated day in and day out is kind of how you learn anything. It's like if you were learning to be a mechanic and you want to learn how to fix tractors, you could sit and you could read a book. You could sit down, you could read the manual for a John Deere loader or whatever, and you might learn something. Probably learn a little bit, but as soon as something breaks in the field, you're gonna have to know how to fix it yourself. And the only way you learn that is by doing it. You don't do that by reading the book. So I think painting is pretty serious or similar to that in that respect, where it's like something you do every day, a little bit every day. You'll start learning it. Start seeing how the paint flows. Thanks y'all for watching. Give me a like if you got a second, please. Helps me out a lot. If you like watching paint get smushed around. This is a painting of a ferret. My ferret, Jacob. No, I'm joking. If you want to learn it, that's how I should just make my painting tutorials from now on. Just be like, how to paint a ferret. And then have like a painting of a Sasquatch. Just be like, what do you mean? This is how you paint a ferret. I guess I did make a video on how to paint an abominable snowman. It was a fun video. But this is like my work, so I figure I'm painting in the studio for hours and hours every day. I can open up every once in a while, have open studio hours. If anybody's got any questions, feel free to ask down in the comments. can see my brush is just garbage. But you learn to paint with what you got. Good materials help. Paint is the most important thing. If you skimp out on paint, not going to go well. You just need cadmiums. You need cadmium and titanium if you want it to cover. That's pretty much all there is to it. They made a couple different cadmiums now that are, they made a couple different cadmiums which I know are non-toxic. I got one of them, the acrylic variation. I think it was Golden that made them. It might have been Liquitex. But it was pretty good. It was a fake cadmium. Don't have access to those here, but work pretty well. But yeah, you want to get cadmium or you want to get the fake cadmium in order to cover correctly. Give a like if you got a second, please. Tell me a nice story down in the comments. It's always appreciated on these gray days. At least it's gray here in Prague today. Spring is not sprunging. Hopefully spring is sprunging in your area. You can spring along outside. We go into the park every day. I mean, people think about when you have kids, everybody's talking about how you gotta do schooling and that's a pain. That is a pain. Hopefully people have a new acquired respect for teachers after this is all done, but I won't hold my breath. But the other aspect is you gotta make sure your kids have exercise. So it's like every day I've just been going to the park, you know, part of it just for me to clear my head or whatever, walk. I can't just be a zombie when I come home. I'm just not good at it. I'm not bragging. Like people before have thought that I'm like bragging when I'm like, I can't watch TV or movies. I just can't. I feel like I should be doing something when I get home, so it's kind of hard for me to slow down and actually watch a whole movie. Even like all these Netflix series, I've never watched any Game of Thrones. And everybody's like, oh my god, you gotta watch Game of Thrones. I probably like it. I started one episode and then I got lost in like literally 5 minutes. They just like walking through a forest and then they cut off somebody's head and I was like, oh, I already don't know what's happening. It's like 5 minutes in. I can't keep track of it. Too many characters. If I watch a movie, I like a movie with one character in it, like Uncut Gems. That was good. I did watch that. When I was in my parents' place, I watched movies with my dad. So I could break the rules for that. I often would have a sketchbook with me though. It's probably a condition, graphomania. I have graphomania. I don't know. For some reason, painting is addicting. I suppose there's different reasons why people get into painting too, you know? Some people really want to say something. Those are always great artists to look at. If you look at a lot of the outsider artists, they really want to convey something, usually something they're obsessed with. But they're interested in communication often in their work, even if it's just communication to themselves where they look at an image and they're like, this is that thing that I love. And people can get into painting for they just want to make cool stuff. Remember Jim Lutz, I hope he wouldn't cringe at me saying this, but I was in Jim Lutz's class at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and remember we were talking, sometimes he would just sit and talk with one person for 45 minutes. You never know, especially with teachers. It's hard because you don't want to look like you're favoring, but sometimes there's certain students who are interested in stuff you're actually interested in too. So you end up getting in longer conversations with some students than others, kind of naturally. I try to watch it and curtail it, but it's inevitable that teachers and students will kind of link up in terms of certain ideas sometimes and what they're interested in. And I'd been in this long conversation with Jim Lutz, who's an amazing painter. I love his work. And I remember he's told me, 21-year-old me, making a painting of Super Mario Brothers or something. And he told me, he's like, at the end of the day, we just want our paintings to look cool. He didn't mean that like in a dismissive way, like, oh, it's just about painting looking cool. But it's like, if your painting doesn't look cool, people probably aren't gonna want to look at it, A lot of people probably don't think this painting of the pizza guy is cool. That's okay. But I know there are people that it does resonate with. But there's also just a method of using music, harmony, these sort of things. It's like you can have dissonant music and noise music and music that's not made with the 12-tone structure that we got in the US, or Western music, I should say, US. In all the Western canon of music, we kind of focus on those 12 tones. And there's music that is made without those 12 tones. But there's generally a few rules. Like right now, I'm making certain areas lighter. I'm imagining a light source coming onto this creature that I'm painting. All those basics are kind of the same. So if you're just joining the channel, this is my open studio hours, where I kind of open up my process of making and creating and allow y'all to hang out, ask questions if you have any. How do you make painting look like paint? It's always one thing. When you look at all these digital media, like all the digital media, like paint media and stuff like that, I'll often have students, they're like, what, doesn't this look like paint? It's like, yeah, it kind of looks like paint. That's cool. Why not use paint? If you want that effect. Now, there's certain benefits. Obviously, like if you're on the go or something, it saves paper. I get it. I'm not against digital work. I'm working on a big project right now of a series of NFTs that I'm making with my friend. And essentially, it's all my paintings, and we've cut up all of my life's work into hundreds and thousands of pieces. So like, we had somebody actually, because there's so much work he actually hired somebody to do it, to cut out just like the circle here and just this circle and maybe just this piece, and cut out all these little elements of all my paintings, and then he wrote a script which generates Jeremiah Polachek paintings based on my work. So they're reassembling, essentially collaging and reassembling all my work into new paintings without my hand. This is something I'm always kind of interested in. But paint, you know, I think these images are coming out really good and they look nice. Like the collaborative images I'm working on for this NFT project, I think they're coming out really good because of the painterliness of it. And in a lot of that community, you simply don't see a lot of this kind of painterliness, even if it's that kind of fake paint or it tries to make it look like pastel or something like that. Usually you can kind of tell. I've been fooled a couple times, yeah, where it's digital and it's faked to make it look like paint. But there's another way to do that, and it's just by using paint. You know? I suppose you don't have Control Z. You don't have Control Z with paint, do you? That's a problem. I've had students throughout the years talk about that, how they get so used to undoing what they're making as they're making it. Just Control Z out. If you're just joining the video, please give me a like. Like and subscribe if you like this kind of content, if you like watching me paint and my tips. I also have a lot of good movie suggestions. Even though I was just saying, I don't watch movies. I used to work in a video store. I actually used to work in an actual VHS store. And then people are always like, you worked at a Blockbuster? And I was like, nope, not a Blockbuster actually. I worked at it was like a family-owned video store. We sold CDs as well, and some tobacco-related products we had for those tobacco enthusiasts that like to have water pipes for their tobacco consumption needs. I don't know if that's still the law in the US or not, that you can't say the word bong. There used to be signs up that said like, don't ask for anything that rhymes with long in this store. But yeah, we had videos. It's called Budget Music and Video. And so I used to stock movies, and we'd play movies all day long, of course. And since it was kind of like a mom and pop shop, you'd have to be careful. Like if kids came in and you're watching Goodfellas, might be a good idea to pause it, which we did. My big movie during that time was called Cool as Ice, which is a movie with Vanilla Ice, he's kind of a bad boy, but he's in love with a nice girl. He's in love with the nice girl next door. And I would play that all the time, just to mess with people. And finally the person I was working with was just like, nah, I can't do it. No more. No more Cool as Nice. Actually saw Vanilla Ice play as well. I would have seen him twice. I saw him once in the US when I was really little. And then he actually played Prague when he became like in a death metal band or whatever. He's in like a heavy metal band. and he played Prague, and we were in line, and we're like, okay, I'll pay, you know, whatever, 30 bucks, 20, 30 bucks to see Vanilla Ice. That's fine. And then I remember we're all waiting in line, and they're like, general admissions sold out. There's only like $60 tickets left. And everybody was like, okay, let's go get a beer. Sorry, Vanilla. Or maybe he was Rip Van Winkle or whatever his name is. I think his last name is like Van Winkle in real life. Like Rupert Van Winkle or something like that. But yeah, we skipped out on the show. But I did see him with, who was it? Right Said Fred and TLC. I saw TLC as well when I was really little. Go to shows. Hey Neil, the concept with the pizza, I just kind of let the pizza happen, you know? Sometimes the painting dictates that it needs some pizza in it. And you might think I'm being sarcastic, but I'm actually not being totally sarcastic. In my paintings, I kind of just let things happen as they arise. Sometimes it's a piece of pizza. Usually, you know, oftentimes it's not a piece of pizza. But in this particular one, it did. I make a lot of portraits of people, and I look at a lot of filters that people use as well. Thanks, Neil. I look at a lot of like facial filters that people use, and I was playing this one with eating hamburgers the other day with my daughter, where you like turn on this filter and like hamburgers drop from the sky, and then you got to open your mouth to eat it. I wasn't thinking that when I made this, but maybe that's my subconscious bubbling up, and you know, it just needed some pizza. Another good thing about painting and streaming at the same time is that I can look at my screen, I can look at my computer screen, and I can see a little image of my painting, which is kind of cool. Instead of having to back up, like physically back up and look at your painting on the wall, you can just look at it on the screen. Then I've got a lot of my old videos, as you can see, kind of playing in the background there too. If you're enjoying it, enjoying watching me paint, take questions from y'all, please give me a like. Helps me out with a little click, click, click. Helps propagate my free content to y'all. And change the world with painting. I used to have a storefront studio, which is essentially a studio that's open to the public. So I'd literally be painting and people could just walk in. And I had like t-shirts and stuff in there too for sale. So it wasn't like you're just like, oh, here's an artist studio. But I had like t-shirts for sale in the window because I was doing silk screening on thrift store stuff, which was fun. So people would come in and buy stuff. It wasn't like they were coming in to buy a painting. And one time, this big muscle guy, this guy was just jacked, huge, not like normal sized human by any means. This huge guy came in, just ripped up, and I was sitting there painting. And he's like, you just like come here and paint every day? And I was like, oh man, is this guy gonna like make fun of me for painting. Am I in high school again? He's gonna like, you know, be like, oh, the artist has to paint. But I was like, yeah, I just come in here and paint. That's what I do. And he's like, oh, that's so amazing. Like the complete opposite of what I expected. Like, that's awesome. And he's like, you do this every day? And I was like, yeah, I just paint every day. It's what I do, no matter what. And so he started talking about bodybuilding and this whole conversation. But same thing. Same thing with painting. Once again, not everybody needs to make a painting of a claymation pizza portrait person, but you might end up making one if you paint every day for a certain amount of time. It could happen. Give yourself over a little bit, relinquish a little bit of control. Yeah, it makes sense that I'm into Ray Bradbury. Just been reading that book on the Metro lately. It's called Zen and the Art of Writing. But I really think maybe that's really the key to education. When in education we always think so much about like how something is going to work and what are the impacts and is this measurable that this type of teaching is successful and all this sort of stuff. But it's at the end of the day, maybe the best thing we can do is just provide a space where people can practice consistently. And when that happens, you're gonna get better. I know there's videos out here too that are like how to practice and actually learn. And that's probably true. I think there's probably certain things that we all do that we don't even notice and kind of spin our wheels. So it's good to like challenge yourself. But as they say with the piano, one of the first things you have to do is just kind of get a feel for that piano being a thing. Get used to it, get used to where the keys are, get used to how it feels when you push them down with your fingers, how you put your fingers in different places to make them do different things. I think we're leaving out a lot of the intuitive process of painting. Maybe people don't like it because in schools at least they're scared of it because it comes off as being mystical or almost religious in a certain extent, where it's like you gotta just allow things to happen. And this can work for figurative work too, or representational work. It's all, to an extent, abstract to a certain degree. So just as you get used to how the paint moves and blends and what colors work on top of each other, you can get into a communication with them more. This is my open studio hours for anybody who's just joining. Feel free to ask any questions that you've got in the comments. I am checking the chat. Give me a like if you can. Helps me propagate the video. and helps you continue to get free content from me. I'm gonna break in about 10 minutes because I need some food. It's lunchtime. Thanks to everybody that's stuck around and continued watching. If you're lurking and you get a burning question, feel free to ask me whatever's on your mind. Generally, if it's about painting, I'll have a better answer. And if it's a question about how to fix your plumbing or something, I might not be able to help out that much. If you've been enjoying my videos, please give it a like. Helps me out. These are just open studio hours. It's the middle of the night in the US, where most of my followers are, but this is when I paint, so gotta paint when I can. So I got all the night owls and the Europeans with me, generally. don't know what time it is in Southeast Asia and Australia. It's probably nighttime there, wouldn't it be? I don't know. Should check. If only there was some way to check the time in Jakarta. All right, it's lunchtime. I'll be back in about 15-20 minutes. Thanks for watching, and stick around. I'll pop back after I'm done eating. Gotta put this piece in first. Cool. Be back in a little bit.